we got a game going now. We got a good player, 2100, but he only plays Classical, and he's played 18 games. Has he won all 18? "15 victories, 3 defeats." Okay. So, maybe we've got an actual opponent here. But it's hard to tell because he hasn't played anything else. Let's see if he has a certain amount of time that he uses on each move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Always paranoid playing the long games. Okay, so no distinct pattern yet, but thinking on move 4. That's not a typical move, so I'm going to ignore it. If you want to take, sure, boss man. Okay. All seems pretty reasonable. We're going to go d3, bishop g5, rook b1, a3, b4. And that's a typical plan in the structure. With the knights gone, I don't know if that helps black any, though. Let's do this first. He might go h6. I might want to keep the bishop pair. I don't know. But I do know that the plan for b4 is definitely the way that we should be going in the position. Let's go ahead and get that. Now, he probably should play h6 to prevent bishop g5 takes, knight d5, and then b4, because the knight will support the b4 push from d5. Normally, this knight comes to e1, then c2 to support b4, but since he doesn't exist, we figure out a way for the other knight to do it, etc., etc., etc. Also, if I go bishop g5 and takes, that removes the guard from b4 as well. So we do have a straightforward position here with white, and I don't feel that my opponent was using any sort of assistance in the game, which is one of my first questions. Well, so far anyway. It's always the opportunity. Do-do-ba-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Mana. These are the types of things that go through my head when I'm playing a long game. And when it's 90 minutes or longer, it feels like an absolute eternity. Because most of the time I know the opening, I know the structure, know what I should be doing, so I don't have to think. Which is why I prefer faster time controls. Ooh, I really want him to play bishop b7. So how can we provoke it? Like the dream is to trade these guys off. And then it's knight versus bishop, where my knight will be on d5 and it can't be kicked out by anything. It's a god-level threat, so to speak. That's a monster. But if I go knight d5 too quickly, yeah. All right, let's try queen a4 or queen c2. We're going to go queen a4 because it connects the rooks and it does something. And we're going to see, because he played b6, it just feels a little off. And because it feels a little off, I'm going to give them the opportunity to make the mistake that I feel like he was trying to make. And this is fishing. And I've been asked before in a comment, like, what do you mean by fishing? Well, I'm setting up an error Like he telegraphed the punch, because b6 didn't make much sense. And then this forces my hand here. And e4 is not a problem because I can just take it with the knight. There's no discovery issues. So let's go ahead and play b4. And I'm still hoping for that ending that was aforementioned. Bishop b7. Definite time for him to go wrong still. If bishop e7, knight d5. And here, I think we are in excellent shape. After rook b4, where the b pawn is isolated and weak forever. And with the queen out of the way, my other rook can come over here and we can make Alekine's gun, or a queen sandwich, if you will, with rook bread. Seems like an effortless position. But tricks are for kids, friend. Maybe you just missed that the pawn was free. Looks like another free pawn. Nah. What is the best way to handle this? Should I allow bishop of opposite colors? Like rook fb1, bishop takes e4, bishop takes e4. He can go bishop d4, but then I'll have e3, bishop c5, rook b3, and eventually d4, where the pawn will fall. And I think the two pawns will be enough that way. It's more of a question of safety at this point, because I could go knight takes f6, queen takes f6, bishop takes b7, rook takes b7, and then rook b1, rook e8. I defend the e2 pawn. And I don't know, he's got rook a8. I'm kind of feeling the bishop of opposite color ending, because there's no chance of me losing that. And I can still improve my position, and he's got a crap pawn structure, and it's just terrible in bed all at the same time. Then we have none of the above with knight d6. Rook b1, bishop d4 immediately, e3, bishop c5. Rook b2, f5. Complications no matter how we look at it. Okay. We will go with the most solid approach. I'll play queen c2 if there's any issues. Love to get the queens off the board. c5 could be an issue at some point. If I go queen b2 and he trades queens, it's over completely. Actually, let's go e3 here. I like the queen there because of c5, queen takes, rook takes, pawn takes, he loses. And c5 is a nice setup. c5, pawn takes, rook takes, queen takes, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes. What am I missing? c5. Don't want to allow this. c5 seems critical. Got 19 minutes, so let's think about it a little bit. c5, queen takes queen, rook takes queen. I get what I want. Push if he goes queen h3. I take. Also, by pushing, the rook covers that. Pushing screams to be played. And if he pushes, I trade queens and go d4, and I'm either winning, winning, or winning. I believe that is the correct assessment. All right, let's get rid of that. And as I do not foresee back rank issues with h3, I kind of want to play rook takes to try to simplify the win here. He can't avoid a rook trade. And if rook takes, I want to take with a pawn, because it's going to keep his rook tied, because it won't be able to leave because the pawn is too much of a threat. This gives me time to consolidate while his king comes over. And since he didn't decide to take here now, I'm going to take, because with two rooks, maybe the king being open could be an issue. With one rook, this game is over. I have way too many pawns for the king and pawn in game. And let's go here because we have multiple paths. That seems good enough. If you trade, I get where I want to be, and you don't have a lot of options otherwise. Rook b8 is met by b7, same problems, different position. And since my opponent is giving me time here, we'll start pushing the pawns. No risks, no issues, no threats. Let's go ahead and take that move away. Opposition, and yeah. Okay, so very straightforward English game with nothing much to it, but to do it. Knight d4. I mean, respect my opponent for playing creatively. I feel like he was out of book at move 4, and maybe 2200 is not a reasonable goal for this rating category. Because I felt like this 2100 rating, no disrespect to him, compared to, say, US chess ratings, this is like a 15 or 1600 level game. But there may be wild variances in skill and classical. Remains to be seen. But I do definitely feel like one in accuracy, 16 center pawn loss. So I was playing at a very high level, which I'm pleased with for that game. And It liked taking immediately. But yeah, I got an extra move in. So I milked the extra move. H6 doesn't help him. My queen move definitely gave opportunities for him to go wrong. Huh? And after thinking about it, I made the right conclusion. That was probably the only moment in the game I knew I was winning, but what's the best way to go about doing it? And I did think for a while on this. But then evaluated the bishop d4. What? Yeah, I didn't see the fact that he had to sack on e3. I was looking at like f5 and stuff. And I'm like, the pieces are on the board. He's attacking. It's winning, but what was easier? And that is one of those practical questions. Like when on my chessable courses, the engine warriors would be like, but engine said first choice. And it's a difference in skill level. How much effort and how much room for error does a human have playing the engine's top choice versus, say, what I did in this game, which happened to be the engine's first choice, where black has no counterplay and no chances. The only thing that he could possibly do is mate me to win. His pawn structure's crap, and if I trade queens, it's over. So, when he goes queen e6, I see the idea of c5 already. I have it in my mind, so I need to defend that. I understand h4, but c5, which it marks as an inaccuracy, seems like the most forcing move that just gets the game done here, folks. Because if b5, I'm going to go queen takes. And then I'm going to go d4. And you can play this if you like, but how are you preventing my king from coming up and into the game and getting decent squares? You're not. So you may be having a passed pawn right now, but my rook is eventually going to come in. And this guy blockading, he's not going anywhere. So I felt very confident about my winning chances here with a +3 position. Takes. And, okay, he took the right way. He wanted me to take with the rook, but I'd rather have his rook tied down. And I figured for takes or h3, in which case g4 makes a lot of sense. And then you're going to go f4, king f2, and grab the pawn that way. So this could be a huge issue for me in middle games with the queens on the board, but in a pure rook ending, just one rook, no problems at all. And not much to think about here. And it's understandable my opponent had a respectful resignation. So overall, very pleased with that game. And I think that will do it for my games today.